Hello everyone, wish you all a lucky new day. There are stories that don't need tragedy. Just sincerity is enough to make us cry. Tuna makes everyone cry when being with Alex at the most difficult time is such a journey where human love is tested in the midst of business storms. When Alex was trapped by his partner, the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Friends turned their backs, everything collapsed. But in the midst of despair, Tuna still stayed. She didn't make any big promises, just quietly held his hand, and went through sleepless nights with him. It was that sincerity that moved millions of people, because sometimes true love doesn't need much talking, just not leaving when the other person falls. Watch until the end of the video to understand why Tuna not only saved Alex, but also touched the hearts of all of us. That afternoon, the sky was as gray as if covered by a thin layer of smoke, heavy and suffocating. In the villa, in the middle of a quiet neighborhood, Alex sat silently at his desk, his gaze empty after many days of sleeplessness. Suddenly, the door opened slightly, revealing his secretary and Mai. Both of their faces were dazed. Mai put the thick file down on the table, her voice trembling. "Mr. Alex, the bamboo batch just arrived. The police are investigating. They said the goods were of unknown origin, possibly banned." The atmosphere immediately froze. Alex was stunned. His hand holding the cup of coffee trembled slightly. A few drops spilled onto the table, but he didn't even bother to notice. Every word in the file seemed to burn his eyes. Documents, contracts, stamps, everything looked legal. Yet now, everything collapsed just because of a suspicion of unknown origin. He quickly picked up the phone, called the partner supplying the shipment, the one who had signed and promised absolute guarantee. But the operator's voice rang coldly. "The subscriber you have dialed is currently unavailable." A deadly silence, only the sound of rain starting to fall outside the window. Alex leaned back in his chair, his hand on his forehead, his heart pounding. Mai quietly left Alex's house, her eyes filled with worry and a bit of calculation. Instead of returning to the company, as she had said before, Mai turned into a small cafe in a deserted alley, where a middle-aged man was already waiting. They spoke softly, just enough for the waiter to hear a few words like shipment, certificate, urgent processing. Mai pushed a thin envelope towards the man. He hesitated for a moment, then quickly put it in his pocket. Mai's eyes looked around, as if afraid someone was following. A gust of wind blew by, causing the invoice on the table to fly to the ground, clearly printed with the words, Van Loek Company Raw Bamboo Supplier. That name was the partner that Alex had just called but could not contact. Could it be that, behind the investigation of the shipment, Mai was not innocent? It was getting dark, but Alex still rushed on the road leading to the suburban wood workshop. The car splashed water like his confused state of mind. Just over half an hour later, he stopped in front of the factory where the newly imported bamboo was being busily processed. Before his eyes were the green, straight bamboo stalks with a strangely smooth surface. Beautiful, perfect, trustworthy. That was what he thought when he saw them with his own eyes. But now, they were labeled unknown origin. Alex walked slowly through each pile of materials, touching the bamboo stalks still damp with rain. His eyes stopped at the strange symbols engraved near the base, not his company code, nor in the import documents. His heart tightened. He called the factory manager, asking about the shipment documents, but this person just shook his head. "We received them on Ms. Mai's order." She sent the documents via internal email. The wind blew hard. The paper in Alex's hand trembled. The words entered quickly before the periodic test made him shiver. Now he was very confused. He didn't know what to do. Late afternoon, Tuna's small farm was aglow with the sunset. The atmosphere was strangely peaceful, with only the sound of the wind blowing through the trees and the smell of smoke wafting through the air. She was busy in the wooden kitchen, preparing dinner with Alex's favorite dishes: sour snakehead fish soup, fried spring rolls, and a plate of stir-fried morning glory with garlic. On the table, She also placed a glass of lemonade he usually drank after meals, everything just waiting for him to return. It was almost 7 o'clock. Tuna looked out the gate, smiled softly. He must have been busy with work again. She had no idea that, a few dozen kilometers away, Alex was sitting in the woodwork shop, facing the risk of losing everything. Between peace and storm, those two people, one still waiting, the other falling, were about to enter the moment that would change their lives. Alex was driving back to the farm, in silence. The familiar road suddenly felt longer than ever. The lights in the house were still on, giving off a warm yellow light that he had long forgotten how to feel. Entering the gate, he saw Tuna busily cooking in the kitchen, his favorite dishes. She looked up, smiling slightly. "Are you back?" Just for words, but Alex's heart was choked. He sat down, holding her hand, her calloused hand, strangely warm. His eyes were red, his voice hoarse. "I can lose everything, but I don't want to lose you." Tuna didn't know what was happening, just quietly replied, "I don't need anything. I just want you to be safe." In the middle of the small kitchen, the man who had just gone through a storm found peace, the only place where there was no betrayal, no benefits, only human love. Nhat gently pulled out a chair, poured him a glass of warm water. The yellow light from the lamp on the table reflected on Alex's face, tired, but now gradually melting in her gentleness. He was silent for a long time, then suddenly spoke, his voice breaking like a child who had been suppressed for too long. "Nah, I was wrong. I trusted people too much. She was the one who arranged everything. That shipment, from the beginning, was a trap. They took advantage of me, then ran away, leaving all the sins for me to bear. I lost almost everything, company, friends, even honor." He put his head down on the table, his hands shaking, tears falling uncontrollably. Sobs burst out, rough and strangely weak, completely different from the man who had always been strong. Cold in the face of all the storms of business, Tuna was silent, then walked over and hugged him tightly. She didn't ask, didn't judge, just patted his shoulder gently, her voice trembling slightly. "Cry, brother. Don't try to be strong anymore. I'm here." That sentence made Alex cry even louder, as if all the emotions that had been pent up for so long had finally burst out. He talked about the restless moments, about the fear of being seen as a failure, about having to put on a mask of calm when his heart was broken. Na just sat there, letting him lean his head on her shoulder, listening to his heartbeat rapidly like a child afraid of losing his place to lean on. She softly said, "You can lose everything, but if you still have me and Henry, you can still start over." Alex looked up, his eyes red but shining with a small ray of hope. He held her hand tightly, feeling the warmth from her palm, the warmth of the only person who did not leave him in his darkest moment. After everything seemed to calm down, Alex sat on the porch, the yellow light shining on his face that still had traces of fatigue. The space was quiet. Only the chirping of insects in the garden could be heard. Alex looked into the distance, then spoke softly, his voice low but more determined. "I have thought it through. I cannot let the efforts of so many people for so many years go to waste just because of a few traitors. I will do it again, no matter how difficult it is." Tuna sat down next to him, her eyes looking at him gently. "You are not alone. I will be by your side, no matter how many storms lie ahead." He turned around, his hand gently squeezing hers, the hand that had once calmed him in the midst of the storm. "I promise to handle everything properly, not for fame, not for money, but to be worthy of the trust you have in me." Tuna smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. The two of them were silent, letting the warmth spread in the quiet night. Outside, a gentle wind shook the bamboo rows, like a gentle encouragement from heaven and earth.